Hello, discussion that we are planning to have today, and I think we want to discuss about what's happening in America and its repercussions. It has been a very interesting week for the global politics, and especially related to the tariff wars that Trump has started few weeks ago, but it has intensified in the last 1 week. So we'll play a clip from the White House, and we'll discuss about it. We'll discuss about what is happening in America, and we'll also discuss how the world has been responding to it. So if Maham can play the first clip, and we'll discuss about it after that.
Trade agreements that put America first are the ultimate formula to usher in the golden age of America. On that note, more than 75 countries have now reached out to the Trump administration, eager to address the trade issues that have exploited America and hurt our workers in the process. The phones have been ringing off the hook to make deals, and these countries wisely heeded President Trump's warning not to retaliate, and as a result, they were rewarded with a 90-day pause and substantially lower reciprocal tariff rates during this period so potential solutions can be achieved. Past presidents just willingly accepted the failed status quo on trade that ripped off our workers and our companies. But that's not who this president is. He creates his own leverage and negotiates deals better than anyone else who has sat in the Oval Office before him. And that process is currently underway. On another matter, the deadline for registration under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States longer than 30 days must register with the federal government. Failure to comply with this is a crime, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or both. As President Trump and Secretary Noem have both said, if you register and you leave now, you choose to self-deport, you may have the opportunity to return later legally. But if not, you will be arrested, fined, deported, never to return to our country again. The Trump administration will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws. We will not pick and choose which laws to enforce. We must know who is in our country for the safety and the security of our homeland and for all American citizens. I also have a note from the First Lady to share with you on this Friday. On Tuesday this week, First Lady Melania Trump celebrated the advancement of the Take It Down Act in the House Energy and Commerce Committee. The important legislation passed the committee with bipartisan support, and as you may remember, the President talked about this bill in his address to a joint session of Congress last month. The First Lady remains dedicated to her championing child well-being, ensuring that every young person can thrive, and of course, championing her Be Best agenda. We urge Congress to swiftly pass this important legislation. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jordan Berman. Jordan is a social media content creator and influencer and a lawyer who grew up following breaking down the news from a neutral perspective. Jordan is the host of her own podcast called Unbiased Politics, where she dissects the top stories from the week from a legal perspective. Jordan focuses on bringing back real journalism from a nonpartisan perspective and has mastered explaining complex legal decisions to a mass audience in the short-form context. Her two biggest platforms are TikTok and Instagram, where she has roughly 500,000 followers on each. With that, please kick us off, Jordan.
Thank you. As you know, yesterday the House passed the same.
Okay, I'm going to pause over here. I think we should discuss what's happened. So after the Trump administration basically posed tariffs on half of the globe, 75 countries basically came back to renegotiate. And that's kind of a win-win situation as far as the Trump administration is concerned, and that's how they're trying to sell it off. So, Aditya, what do you think about that? How do you see this? Do you think later on we're going to check further in this clip, barring what the First Lady is doing, because that's not the subject here. I wish her well, all the best. But then there are media questions further in this press conference, which was held and shared with us on behest of the White House Media Center. So all sources and courtesy to the Media Center at White House. Go ahead, Aditya.
Thank you. So I believe the Trump administration garnered support from his base and the people who were not like Republicans, hardcore Republicans, you can say, but who supported for a change in the government, had few things that really mattered to them. One of the biggest reason was immigration. They believe that under Biden, a lot of illegal immigration was allowed in the United States, and they were rallied by Donald Trump against it. The Trump administration or the Trump base believes that a lot of illegal migration or any kind of immigration to America is not good for the country. The second big thing that Trump believed, and I think he still believes that which he also rallied about in his speeches, was about how he believes that America has been uh, used by the global partners, and they have never responded to those abuses, and they have always been used by the global partners that they have. And it's time to take back the control, and it's time to bring back the jobs back to America, which it has always been a big idea in Trump's mind. Even if some people shared clips from the 1970s and the 1980s, where if you can agree or disagree that he believe, if he even believes in anything, but you can be sure that there's one thing that he has always believed in, and that is trade abuse. He had clips from the 1970s and the 1980s on the Oprah Winfrey show and like other places too, where he spoke about it in the 1970s and the 80s. It was Japan which was supposed to take over the economy of United States of America, and to become the the largest economy in the world. And he at that time also believed that our systems were abused. The trades were not uh, honest towards them. There were misuse of the trading system. So he believed that tariffs are the best policy to fight against these
Do you think these
injustices.
tariffs can work? Because I think that's something which has been discussed in at large. Do you think these tariffs can work, or do you
I think
go
I
ahead?
think it's a it's a very long discussion about do tariffs work or not.
So
There's
would
no
they
right
work
answer to
in
it.
favor of the United States, or as we've seen, as soon as those tariffs were kind of deployed, China reciprocated them, and as a resultant, you saw the market go haywire. Do you think the American consumer is ready to like pay the hiked price for their products in everyday living?
So Trump is not a regular politician. He's a populist, and there are many populists throughout the globe. They don't talk a lot of rational things, but they'll tell you things which will connect to your heart. They will speak your mind. They will say the most acceptable thing, or things that people want to hear. So American people do believe that the current places, the Rust Belt, that the the place you now refer to as the Rust Belt, which was supposed to be the the manufacturing hub of America,
Hmm.
where they used to produce a lot of cars and a lot of their own stuff, is now considered as a Rust Belt, because a lot of manufacturing which Americans used to do for themselves left America for the Chinese market. So people do believe that their
But do you know,
markets have been used abused.
Aditya, that do you know what that reminds me of? Ironically speaking, it reminds me of places like Birmingham when the British Empire finished. It reminds me of places like Southampton, where people used to say in the UK, these are now places where the trade basically began. the Industrial Revolution occurred, and then they just became those places where people were jobless. You could see the remnants of various things, but there was no activity. Even the immigration who came as a workforce to continue those things later on just basically became no ones in those regions, and they seem to be northern areas of United Kingdom seem to be the most deprived areas today in 2025, and have been the most deprived areas since the last 20-30 years, uh, because the Industrial Revolution shifted elsewhere. Would you say that America is facing the same thing, and
It's
industry and the revolution is moving elsewhere, and
it's
places like Dearborn, for example, which is heavily populated by Muslim immigrants from all over the world, as well as other immigrants, they seem to be it's a dead town. Dearborn is a
so it's
prime
it's
example.
so let me give you an example. So the part of the Rust Belt that people refer to as to now also was like was a city called Detroit. If you must have heard about it. It was the car manufacturing capital of the United States of America, and not just United States of America. It was the largest car manufacturing hub of the world. It's not just that. It was the richest region of the United States of America. It was richer than what you have now, like California or Los Angeles in America. So it was that rich. So just imagine a population which was considered to be like the most prosperous population of a country, and they end up in like 30 to 40 years to be no one. People are laughing at you. People consider you as like a backward population, like you don't deserve it, maybe you're not competent enough. So there is a lot of pent up anger in this Rust Belt. And also like the middle America, which is like the other term that they use is the Bible Belt, or like the region which are more religious, but they are not as productive, because the coastal regions are now considered to be like more educated and more prosperous regions. The east coast and the west coast, and like some parts of Texas and all these still like coastal region only. So the center America also feels left out, and this is the core vote bank of Donald Trump. They don't care about a lot of like what is happening in the share market, how the bond markets are responding. They are looking for revenge. And Donald Trump is a populist, and when you have a populist leader ruling you over you're not very rational. So that's a think about populist. They talk to your they do talk to your heart. They don't make like economic sense. And people who are like seeking revenge, they don't even care a lot about these things. So he's a populist. He's saying things that people feel about, and he still has a very strong like support. The core base is there.
There,
Yeah.
there's a problem. The thing is that the American economy, as well as the European economy, is actually suffering. People are on the roads. It's not because uh, uh, they are supporting a populist leader, but because China has prospered as a result. What you see post COVID is that we can see emergence of poverty in the American society. We can see emergence of poverty in, or glimpses, you would say, even though they might be the first glimpses, but that polish in the Western society has gone off, and they're looking for people to blame it upon, and so that's what's happening. So, if, for instance, these measures fail, I think this popularity is not going to be very long lived. What do you think?
So one thing I like, since we started this, and like, when we decided that we are going to discuss about Donald Trump and his tariffs. The first thing that came to my mind about, like, what is Donald Trump trying to achieve? So I have, like, some basic understanding about Donald Trump. I know that he's a liar. He lies a lot. He lies openly. He's a pleaser. He tries to, like, please people who he considers to be, like, strong personalities. So he likes uh, strong men too. So the only people he has respect for are the strong men of the world. He'll respect Putin. He'll respect Xi Jinping. He'll respect, like, these kind of strong leaders, and he'll take for granted the people he thinks that, are not as, like, strong men or are very democratic and kind of, like, like his neighbor Trudeau. Like, just remember he called him governor, which
Mm.
was very disrespectful to call a head of a state as a governor, and not just any random state. Like, it's a closest ally from the last, I don't know, 200 years.
And a
So,
neighbor, and a neighbor.
and a neighbor, and, like, their relationships are like, India's relationship with Nepal, like, kind of almost an open border. You can travel, there is free trade. You have, like, hundreds of thousands of trucks, not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of trucks with carrying stuff, like, without any checking, crossing the borders every single day. So, and he called that person, like, governor, which is very is disrespectful, because he believes that, he can't
Absolutely.
respond back. But he do respond, he do respect the strong men of the world. He You can hate Putin as much you want to, but he does respect Putin because he's a strong man. He does respect Xi Jinping because he's a strong man. And, like, so one thing I want to tell you about Donald J. Trump is that, I don't want to be, like, super proud of myself when I say this, but, like, some people have some qualities, and I believe that, I can read faces, not in the way that, I can read exactly what you're thinking, but I can, a lot of times I can tell that, if this person is lying or not.
Mm.
And Donald Trump is one person I can genuinely tell you that, I have no idea if he actually believes in what he says. Like, he brings up with the ideas of tariffing Canada, then he pulls it back. Then he decides to put tariffs on Mexico, then he pulls it back. Last week he decides to put tariffs on like 100 countries or something like that, and he, like, in 3 days he pulls it back. So some people are calling it, like, master stroke. He said that, he's checking who responds, who doesn't. Then he doesn't remove the tariffs from China.
I have an
I have
opinion
no
on
idea.
that.
Yeah, tell me.
Aditya, I personally believe what he's doing is that he knows that the main tariff war is going to be with China, but he's imposing it on everyone else. He wants to show and win back his American public by basically showing that I tried, but see what the repercussions would have been, and hence I've had to take a U turn.
Can I make a statement before you proceed?
Of course, of course.
So I believe, like, either he's the dumbest person that, I can think he is, or he's a, like, bloody genius in
Mm,
what he's trying to do. There
mm.
is no in between. Trust me, there is no in between. Either
I,
it was a very
I
dumb move or a genius one. No in between. Yeah, please continue.
do you know something very interesting was said by one of our common friends? And I'm going to name him because I'm sure he's not going to mind. He's from the Sikh community. He's Gurvinder, who's a socialist. And he said something very interesting to me, and he even shared a document which he created himself. We can maybe later on share that. According to him and a lot of socialists, if you listen to Donald Trump, uh, he's talking about the worker movement. He's speaking about how the working classes are being deprived, and he's trying to win them over because they're the ones who voted for him. But he's not sincere with them. He's just showing them. If, for example, I was to tomorrow put tariffs, what it's going to end up doing is going to basically cause harm to your daily lives. So I have no choice. I can try my best, but my best might not be enough. So you have to be used to the hard living which is coming into existence. Uh, uh, and if Gurvinder Bai is listening, I would love for him to join, and he has the link, and we can elaborate further. So I think Trump right now has been forced by the dynamics of economics and the daily lives of whatever is occurring in the world to basically speak the language of Lenin, almost the language of Lenin, where he's addressing the working classes. He's telling them to get together. He's telling them to cause a revolution. And even though he's a capitalist himself, but his revolution is no different from what Lenin did. His revolution, or the revolution he's trying to bring about, is not a capitalist or a free market economy revolution. What he's talking about is socialism. What he's talking about is worker empowerment. And what he's showing those workers is that it's not going to work. What do you think of that, Aditya?
Two things that comes to my mind. One idea is that the exact statement that you made has already been floating around the social media, where people are trying to portray the MAGA people as some kind of Maoist, m- what do they call it? Maoist MAGA, or Maoist populist, kind of something similar to that.
Exactly.
Maoist conservative, sorry, Maoist conservative or something like that, which is very strange. They are their ideology is very conservative. They'll talk about family values. They'll talk about relationship should be between men and women. There are only two genders. All those things. But when it comes to economics, it's very different from supporter of a free market capitalist, or what you call a true capitalist. It's goes exactly against that. So the biggest policy that the MAGA Republicans have been discussing since at least last 6 months is about how would they achieve their targets that they are planning to. So the Donald Trump said that he would massively cut income tax, starting from the lowest uh, class of the people to the richest, where he even talks about he'll cut taxes on the tips that the waiters are earning, or basically completely remove those taxes. So his idea is that I'll tax the imports massively, all the import that we get, I'll tax it. So what it will do, it will make the imports more expensive, but the state is still collecting the taxes, right? They have the money, it's not going directly to the people.
Mm.
So what that will do, that will make the imports more expensive. What that could lead to, not surely will lead to, but that could lead to home manufacturing. People decide that it's more expensive to import, let why shouldn't I start manufacturing in America? It might happen, I'm not sure, I'm no expert, but it might happen. It's a socialist wet dream, to be very honest with you. That's exactly how the socialist thinks, that imports should be discouraged. People should manufacture their own goods, and heavily tax the imports, manufacture it by your own self, and from the money that you get by the imports, the taxes that you collect, use that money to run the state, and the income that you generate from taxing your citizen, you should remove it. that that
So
brings
would you
more
be,
money in people's hand, but also discourages their imports
and that's
from the
very
global.
ironic, isn't it?
Very interesting.
Yeah, because this is supposed to be a man who basically is supposed to be a capitalist.
That's very anti-capitalist, to be honest. Yeah.
That's hilarious. This is supposed to be a man who's supposed to be an outright capitalist. United States is supposed to be promoting free market economy, but by imposing these tariffs, what they've shown is that theories, political ideologies, they all go down the drain. When it comes to defense, you have to become even fascist, socialist, communist, whatever you might be, to save your people or save a face. Would you agree? Isn't that ironic?
It is. So I was just thinking that if Maham's internet is working, let's take her statement about
Of course.
what she feels
Go ahead
about,
with
like,
and then we'll
if
progress with
yeah,
the video
yeah,
further. Yeah, go
her
ahead,
views
Mark.
on, like, the first few weeks of Donald Trump and how she's seeing the, like, the current last 1 week of the so-called, like, freedom of America, like, the second freedom of United States of America, how she's seeing it.
You can
Well,
speak,
there are
Mark.
states in US, there are states in America that are going bankrupt. For example, Nebraska, because Nebraska heavily relied on illegal immigrants as workers, labor, and most of those people left Nebraska. So now all those farms are failing. So maybe he is pretending to be a socialist, but all of the laws he's passing and all that. It looks a lot like he's helping the rich. That's why, if you notice, in Donald Trump's inauguration, when he was made the president, all the CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos on all that lot were in the front rows, while important political outside, because there was no space for them, because it was all covered with businessmen. So there's also this one conspiracy, you can say, that what Donald Trump is trying to do is that he's trying to make dollar lose its power. So all of those people who have bought dollars and kept with them, especially countries, China, I think, have the most dollars, or Japan, I'm not sure. But what they're
China
doing
around
is
$2 trillion.
that they want, according to them, Donald Trump is trying to make dollar lose its power, so that so that they sell the dollar back to America, and that's how they want to take control of it. So maybe he was saying stuff like where he wants to support the working class, and he was using words like that. But really, if you look at him, America is turning into an oligarchy. So there's that.
Like I said, like, it can go either ways. Like, it's very hard to predict. Like, whatever Donald Trump is doing, he's trying to, like, make a big change. Either it can totally work for them or it can totally fall off. There is no in between this time.
I think he's playing very well to the populace because he's going to say, look, I delivered what I promised.
Yeah,
But you
exactly
were not,
that. Like, it doesn't matter if he
you
succeeds or
were
not.
not willing to digest it.
That's
Do you
exactly what he
understand?
said yesterday. After he took back
He
most of
said,
the, like,
you
yeah.
wanted this, I gave it to you. Were you willing to digest it? No, you were not willing to digest it. So I think with that, we'll move forward with the press conference. It's very interesting. It's not just the tariffs, it's a global hegemony, and we should actually look at that. So I'm going to move forward and
Yeah,
let's.
one quick point before you begin. Like, one thing we can be sure of, like, next 4 years or 3 year or 8 months, will be very interesting to watch. Like, Donald, you can be guaranteed Donald Trump's presidency will be interesting. Like,
Aditya, I want to discuss another point, right? And that point we'll discuss later. But India actually fought, or at least the right wing Indian media like Gaurav Arya, and a lot of people basically stated that India is going to be at the forefront of the Palestine agreement, of the Ukraine Russia agreement, because Donald Trump happens to be a friend of Narendra Modi. And that's not happened. Donald Trump has not even mentioned India in anything. It must be really, really embarrassing for the Indian government that they did not respond to all the deportations. They did not respond to anything. In fact, Donald Trump went ahead in the Palestine conflict, and we can discuss that in detail later on, included China rather than India. So I think the Indian government basically overplayed its importance, or they miscalculated. And that must be a huge embarrassment.
I think that's incompetence from India's side. And the second point, quick point I want to make is that the people from the Rust Belt
Actually,
or
after
the
that,
like
diversity hiring has been removed.
What's been removed?
yes, it is.
Can I speak? I just wanted to add that after who's been removed? I should stop talking. My internet is not working.
Well, anyways, I,
No,
I, I think we should listen to the press secretary, Karen and Leavitt, who some people, and I want to be very, very clear, people are telling me I am playing a Zionist press conference here. Well, the thing is, Zionists, or whether they are Muslims or Jews or Christians or whatever, this is an official statement, so we don't really have a choice. I don't know her personally. I'm not endorsing her. The channel's not endorsing her. The panel is not endorsing her. I'm sure Maham and Aditya don't know much about her, as I don't know much about her. So she might be a Zionist. She might be a Jew, but we respect her. It's fine. She's the official spokesperson, so we're going to go ahead with what she's saying, and let's see.
I actually want to give a voice to the American people. I sourced a question from one of my listeners. Her name is Bryn. She is from Oregon. And she asked, what, if any, plans do you have, the administration, for the money that will be generated by tariffs imposed on foreign goods? How will the administration facilitate the development of American industries when many critical components, labor, parts, etc., are much cheaper and more feasible from foreign entities?
It's a great question from your listener, and I want to thank her for submitting it to you to ask. That's the part of the new media seat is so that everyday Americans across the country have a voice in this room. So thank you again for being here. Thanks for the question. The president's point about his trade and tariff agenda is to bolster our manufacturing industries here in our country, to bring down the cost of living here in our country, and to ensure that we are maintaining critical supply chains here in America. We cannot be dependent on countries like China if we want this country to be strong and wealthy. So the president wants to restore wealth to America by shoring up these jobs here at home, which will result in good paying jobs and higher wages for the American public. And so Americans should trust in that process. He effectively implemented tariffs in his first term while driving down the cost of living in this country, and that's what he's focused on doing against. Thank you.
As a follow-up question, could I just ask, are there any specific ideas that the administration has as to what that revenue, specific tariff revenue,
Sure.
will be used for?
Yes, to the heart of your question, the president has spoke about the trillions of dollars that he expects in revenue from tariffs and how we can use it to pay down our debt and to ensure that we are no longer faced with a crippling national debt in the trillions that is going to bankrupt our nation for future generations. So that money coming back home will make America in the green rather than in the red, which any small business owner across the country, I believe, can appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kelly.
Tomorrow there will be negotiations between the United States and Iran in
right.
Oman. What are the president's chief goals for that, and is he satisfied with how Iran is responding to this? They don't want direct face-to-face negotiations, instead sort of old-school shuttle diplomacy where they're in separate rooms and messages are passed back and forth. So is the president comfortable with the arrangement there, and what is the chief objective?
Well, I have spoken to both the president and also his national security team who will be engaged in these discussions. These will be direct talks with the Iranians, and I want to make that very clear. I also spoke to the president just last night about his goal when it comes to Iran, and he has reiterated repeatedly to all of you publicly and also privately to his team here at the White House, his ultimate goal and the ultimate objective is to ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. The president believes in diplomacy, direct talks, talking directly in the same room in order to achieve that goal. But he's made it very clear to the Iranians, and his national security team will as well, that all options are on the table, and Iran has a choice to make. You can agree to President Trump's demand, or there will be all hell to pay. And that's how the president feels. He feels very strongly about it.
And can you update us on Mr. Witkoff in Russia and what's happening with direct communications with Vladimir Putin?
I can confirm that Mr. Witkoff is in Russia to have direct communications with the Kremlin and with Vladimir Putin. This is another step in the negotiating process towards a ceasefire and an ultimate peace deal in Russia and Ukraine. As these negotiations are ongoing, I obviously will not get ahead of the president or his team, but I think the president has been quite clear that he's been continually frustrated with both sides of this conflict, and he wants to see this fighting end. He wants the war to end. We believe we have leverage in negotiating a deal, to a peace deal, and we're going to use that leverage, and the president is determined to see this through.
Sure. Thanks, Caroline. President Trump has said China wants to make a deal on tariffs. The president says he has a great relationship with Chinese President Xi. He's willing to speak with him directly. Why doesn't the president just pick up the phone and get this ball going?
All of the things the president just said are true. The president, as I said from the podium just a few days ago when I was up here, would be gracious if China intends to make a deal with the United States. If China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
So is he waiting for China to make the first move here?
I'm not going to comment on communications that are happening or may not be happening, or either way. We'll leave it to our national security team to get these discussions underway. And as always, in the effort of transparency, we will provide updates moving forward, but the president has made it very clear he's open to a deal with China.
Why is he optimistic that China's going to make a deal, or wants to make a deal? If they're not talking, where's that optimism come from?
He's optimistic.
Hey,
Sean.
why would any of our allies work with us to isolate China in a trade war if we're treating friend and foe alike?
You'll have to talk to our allies who are reaching out to us. The phones are ringing off of the hooks. They've made it very clear they need the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer base. You saw Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office with the president saying that he was going to bring down all of their monetary tariffs and their non-monetary tariff trade barriers as well. We've heard from South Korea. We've heard from Japan. The president has spoken to Vietnam. We have Italy coming to the White House next week. There's a reason for that, Sean, and it's because they need the United States of America and our business model and our markets to survive, and the president is using that leverage to our advantage. Michael.
Hey, thank you, Caroline. Two-part question on China. Beijing says it will simply ignore any further tariff escalations from the U.S. Does President Trump see this as China backing down? And as a follow-up to that, what do you say to people like Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary who say, you guys simply haven't tariffed China enough?
Look, the tariff rate on China remains where it was yesterday, at the 145% level. The president made it very clear when the United States is punched, he will punch back harder. And he hopes to make a deal that benefits the American worker and our companies that have been ripped off for far too long. And he's finally taking bold and courageous action to do that. You know, taking on China is, in the terms of trade and tariffs, is something that both Democrats and Republicans alike have spoken about for decades. President Trump is finally doing it.
Caroline, real quick, the president of El Salvador is coming to the White House on Monday. Does President Trump want him to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia with him?
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice just filed another brief in the lower court. I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday to talk about the cooperation that is at an all-time high. And we very much appreciate President Bukele and El Salvador's cooperation and the repatriation of El Salvadorian gang members who the previous administration allowed to infiltrate our country. Sure.
Thank you very much, Caroline. The president spoke quite highly of the great relationship that he has with the Turkish president. We know that the president might be heading off to the Middle East very soon. Is he planning to meet with the Turkish president, either here in the White House or in Turkey? Any plans?
I don't have any details about the president's overseas trip other than to say he was surely going to Saudi Arabia. There could be more countries as part of that trip. We're working on the details, and as I've said repeatedly, we will provide the details of that trip as soon as possible.
A trip to Turkey, or his invitation to the Turkish president, is under consideration?
I'm not going to comment on the details of the trip, but once they're confirmed, I will certainly let you all know. Yes, Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. I'd like to ask you about presidential health and also about tariffs. On presidential health, are there plans for the president's physician to come here and take our questions? And also, President Trump repeatedly makes remarks about the former president's health. Is he considering using his executive powers to bring any greater transparency there?
As I have said, the president is undergoing his long-scheduled physical. It's a yearly physical that
So, Shah, should we
Shah, you're
discuss
muted.
about?
Yeah.
You're muted.
So what I was saying was they've started discussing the physical in this press conference. I think that's not our topic. But as far as everything else is concerned, you've heard. So what are your opinions, Maham and Aditya?
Ma'am, you go first.
Iran have already threatened America that if America attacked Iran, we will attack all the British, some British situation, some British, I think, places near Iran, and they're going to attack them. So it is kind of a stalemate right now. And I don't understand personally how they're going to decide. I mean, if Iran wants to get a nuclear weapon, I don't think anyone can stop them, especially now because Iran have decided to throw that person who's responsible of keeping Iran in check. They're planning to throw him out if America tries to get rough with them. So it's kind of weird that they're so focused on Iran when Iran was clearly not planning to make it. But I mean, if they keep pushing them, he might just end up doing it. And once if Iran wants to do it, I don't think anyone can stop them. I don't think America can stop them. Once Iran has America couldn't stop Pakistan. America didn't want Pakistan to have a nuclear bomb. How can they stop Iran? What, they're going to bomb Iran now? I'm stuck.
No, but yeah, we did get most of it. So I think about the situation in the Middle East. Last time around, Trump was very pro-Israel and totally in the camp of the Saudi side of argument, which was more total and full trying to stop Iran at any cost. There is no trying to negotiate with Iran, which the previous government tried to do under the previous president Barack Obama, when he tried to broker a deal with Iran, the nuclear deal, which Trump vehemently opposed, and the first thing he did was rejected it and tried to put full pressure on Iran, totally try to block all Iran's trades also. He was listening to everything that Israel and Saudi were trying to make him do. This time around, he's trying to try to do it differently. He believes that his tactics last time did not work as he wished them they would. So this
I
time around, I think he's trying to get a deal too. Like if he could,
I
yeah.
I
Tell me.
think it's rather more interesting than that. I think how the Syrian regime changed, then how Golani and his regime were almost made non-terrorists overnight. The classifications changed. How Balochistan in Pakistan is being promoted as a freedom movement to get them in line. How Taliban have all of a sudden become uh, like fighters for freedom speech. It's ironic. I think it's a rounding up of Iran by the American regime because the Iranians are basically promoting the One Road, One Belt initiative by China. And I think it's this entire situation in regards to tariffs. If you see that Trump administration and the United States let off everyone else but China from the tariffs within 24 hours of its imposition, as we heard in the press conference as well. And I believe that Iran, unless it comes in line, and they've basically contacted the United States and they want a certain kind of negotiation. But again, it seems to be that it's more about China versus the United States. And that is why Donald Trump is trying to figure out a way to resolve the situation with the Russians. So the Russian and the Chinese alliance is disassociated. That's very visible. I don't know what you two think about that. Go ahead.
Can I make a statement which I believe I 100% don't believe in, but I can make the argument from both the sides, and these are the extreme ends of the opposite sides, and it frustrates me when both the arguments make so much sense and sounds this is exactly I think what he's trying to do, and both the arguments come from the exact opposite side. Like you tried to say that he's trying to corner China and it's all about China. There's an argument that could be made about China and why I believe Donald Trump wants a great relationship with China and with Russia. Look what Donald Trump is trying to do with Russia. He's literally giving away Ukrainian land away to the Russians, which he hasn't yet, but he has tried to do it, almost tried to give it away. He said that, I'll stop the war. There's no stopping the war. Just imagine, hypothetically, just imagine if, Pakistani army entered India and taken over, parts of Rajasthan, or let's say, has taken over Rajasthan, and Donald Trump, an outsider, comes and he says that, I want to have negotiate a deal with India. And what is the deal? That, let's stop the fighting and stay wherever you are. So India will come to you and tell you that, there is no settlement. They have already taken a big chunk of our country. So, there is no peace until we get our land back. So in a sense, in one side you're trying to stop the war, it's not just stopping the war, you're giving that region away to Russia. So it's playing to that side. Then with China also, he's very keen to have a trade deal with China, a fairer one. He can flip in a second,
But yeah, don't. don't you think what he's trying to do is basically cut off China and Russia?
Not at all. Let me tell you why. Let me
Hmm.
tell you why. Like, if he hated Russia so much, he
I
wouldn't
don't
have speak.
think he hates Russia. I think he or United States can't afford a relationship of coalition between Russia and China. That's what I think.
So you believe that, he is trying to bring Russia closer to the Western hemisphere or the Western influence and isolate China. So okay,
Yeah,
let me.
because the thing is, if you look at the Chinese and if you look at the One Road One Belt initiative, what you see is that if China was to succeed, it's going to overpower United States as the main superpower or the hegemony
Okay,
over the.
let me give you another very bizarre, like, theory about the one belt one road theory. I think it's a very stupid and a useless route.
Mm,
Doesn't make any sense. 95% of the value and 90% of the production of China happens on the easternmost part of the country and the sea, right? South China Sea is where
South-
95% of the value is created, that,
Absolutely,
that they export to the world.
you're
Sea
correct.
routes, sea routes are 90 to 95% cheaper to make an export globally. 90 to 95%, they are like damn cheap. Like, nothing can come even close to when to, like, comparing how efficient sea routes are when you want to have trades. The only
Absolutely.
reason the only reason you want to have a land route for like, between countries is a strategic one. It's just a strategic road. The best case scenario you can have for these routes is, like, if in a scenario in a war, imagine if a country like America with, like, it's huge, like, sea power blocks all the trade routes with China, with the world. They can use these trade routes to bring in more resources in a
Absolutely.
scenario of a war. So these are not trade routes, they are strategic routes, according to me. So
Mm,
I don't believe, like, he would play such stupid games or mind games with Iran or these parts of the world to discourage the, like, the trade routes or the Silk Road. I think,
absolutely.
like, I think the issue of Iran is a separate one. It's about, like, specifically Iran and America's relationship with Saudi Arabia and the Middle Eastern countries like UAE. And I think, like, he's playing both the sides. He's trying to be nice to Iran, to tell the Middle Eastern powers that, we have other options. He's trying to play nice with the Middle Eastern powers to tell Iran that, we are still against you if you don't make a deal. So to predict Donald Trump at this moment is impossible. He can tomorrow, you won't be surprised if tomorrow he has a meeting with Xi Jinping and they decide to, like, start the trade again with 0% tariffs. And the
Now
best tariff,
he's
yeah,
kind of
exactly.
already suggested that.
Yeah,
You're
so
not.
he's totally unpredictable, totally. And, like, you can't tell me one argument and the other side of the exact opposite argument doesn't make the same sense. So that's why I'm saying that he's totally unpredictable. I seriously don't know what he's after. He also speaks very highly of, like, Xi Jinping in a way, like, even he tried to tell the Prime Minister of India that, the President of China is a good friend and he can broker a peace deal between India and China if India wanted to. Very unpredictable. That's my argument.
I personally do not disagree with you. But the fact of the matter is, obviously, the Chinese and the Iranians and others are reacting to it. I think we should listen to further
One
questions.
quick point before you continue this. To play nice to Iran also works for America, because when you play nice to Iran, it's a statement to Saudi Arabia to say that, if you don't increase the production of oil, if you don't put in more barrels in the market, which he has promised that, he wants to bring down the prices of crude. So if you don't put out more crude oil in the, in the supply chain, we'll try to broker a deal with Iran, and Iran will do that for us. It's not that, we are compiled to, to have a deal with you only and work for you. We have other options. So it works both the ways. He's very smart in a way, or he could be the dumbest. I don't know. But he's very, unpredictable.
I think time will tell how this unfolds, but it's very obvious that it's actually whatever it is, it's between China and the United States. Russia happens to be right in the middle of it.
Another quick point. Let me, again, to, disagree with your point. So his biggest donor in the election was Elon Musk. And from what you can see that, Elon Musk has basically, like, said anything that he have ever wanted to against any country or any leader he wished to, except one leader. He even said, a lot of, things about Donald J. Trump too. He said that he didn't like him, just 4 years ago. But he would never make that same statement regarding Xi Jinping. 60% of his cars, to 60 to 70% of his cars, are manufactured in China.
Mm.
His 40 to 50% of the sales of his car are in China. And a lot of people believed even before the elections that,
But I don't understand how that's disagreement with me.
because if I have leverage over you, I will make you do things that are beneficial to me. I can, make those adjustments to make you do things for me. And I believe uh, Elon Musk is a pawn of the Chinese state in a way, not exactly, but it's not far fetched. It's the most common theory that you'll come across on internet that, he's a Chinese stooge.
But
It's
that's not something which I disagree with. That's something
So he
which
can either be he can also be playing both sides with Elon Musk too. On one side, he's taking money from Elon Musk, trying to play nice to him. On the other side, he just flipped the coin on China just last week. Could
of
be
course.
anything. So yeah,
Okay.
let's
So
continue.
I think we should hear the rest of the press conference and see where it goes. Again.
Every president receives, and we will provide an update on that by the president's physician as soon as we possibly can.
And about the former president and transparency regarding his health, are there...
Well, I can tell you there was certainly a lack of transparency from the former president, from the entire former administration, and frankly, a lot of people in this room when it came to the health and the competence of the former president of the United States, Joe Biden. There was one of the greatest cover-ups and frankly political scandals this nation has ever seen. It's been unraveled in some recent books that are being written by journalists who engaged in that cover-up and scandal, which is quite ironic. But this president is clearly committed to transparency. You in this room see him and hear from him on a daily basis. You in this room know from covering him, it's hard to keep up with him. He is a machine working around the clock every single day. And the physician, after today's physical, will provide an update on the report in the effort of transparency.
If I could ask about tariffs, there have been big swings this week in the Treasury bond yields. There's a theory that it might be because of China dumping these as leverage, driving up costs for U.S. loans like mortgages. Does the White House have evidence that this is in fact a result of Chinese dumping, and if so, is there a message on that?
Not to my knowledge, but I would check in with the Treasury Department on that. I can tell you I know our Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, is keeping a very close eye on the bond market. He spoke about it at the White House this week, and I know he's keeping his eyes on it day to day. Ed.
Thanks. Thank you, Caroline. So the administration, I have an administration source who's telling me that we're weeks away from the first deal with a country over tariffs. Where is the administration? How soon can we see that? And what country is that first one?
I won't reveal or get ahead of our trade team as these negotiations are obviously ongoing, but I can tell you very good progress has been made. Jameson Greer was on television this morning and I spoke to him, and he confirmed that more than 15 offers are already on the table, which is remarkable in just a mere matter of days. And as I said earlier, we've heard from more than 75 countries around the world. This is a team effort. The president has a team of great, brilliant advisors who have been with him every step of the way, and all of them will be divvying up the workload. And I just want to give the president and his trade team credit for taking this on. This is a massive undertaking. There's no doubt about it. We take it very seriously. The president is determined to renegotiate global trade on behalf of American workers. And again, you've seen people on both sides of the aisles calling for this for years, but I think no other president lacked the courage or maybe the work ethic or the stamina to take on such a task. And I know there were some questions about the president's delayed departure earlier to Walter Reed. I'd like to address it was because he is working on this very issue, so he was running a bit behind this morning.
On the 90-day pause, what would the president need to see in order to extend that 90-day pause for countries on tariffs?
Well, I think the president addressed this yesterday when he said he's hoping that there will be good deals made before the 90 days is up, and we will cut those deals as soon as we possibly can, country by country, tailor-made deals for each and every country as they all propose unique challenges and unique assets to each country, advantages rather, and when that 90-day mark hits, the president will make that decision then.
One more, if I could, on a different subject. So a bird earlier attacked my colleague, Peter Doocy, during a live shot at
I'm wondering if that's why Peter is absent from his seat. Is he doing okay?
He's recovering.
Has anyone checked on him?
He's recovering. Is anyone looking into that incident?
I could check in with GSA to see if anybody here is looking into it. I also understand there was a mouse in the briefing room earlier today, so I'm hoping somebody checked in on that, as I'm hoping it doesn't run up here and distract me. That would be a good way for all of you to distract me, actually. Have a mouse come run up here. So I'll get an answer for you on that, out of respect for our good friend Peter. Jeff?
Why is American consumer confidence so low?
Look, I think there's a great optimism in this economy, great optimism for the American people, a lot of reason for people to feel optimistic. The president is, as I just said, trying to renegotiate the global trade agenda that has ripped off the American people for far too long. As he said, this is going to be a period of transition. He wants consumers to trust in him, and they should trust in him. Look at what he did in his first term. And I just want to reiterate all of the reasons to be confident since you asked, Jeff. For those watching at home, yesterday the CPI report, inflation declined massively. Consumer prices are dropping for the first time in years. Energy prices are down. In fact, oil prices are down 20% since this president took office. Wholesale prices fell again. There have been trillions of dollars in investments into this country. Every day the president is signing executive orders to cut regulation, especially when it comes to Environmental Protection Agency, our energy industry. That's going to unleash the economic boom in this country that we saw in the president's first term. So trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula.
What is he asking of Americans at this time? He talked about transition costs, transition problems. Is he asking something specific for Americans to do?
No, I think the president is asking for Americans trust in Trump, as I just said, trust in his economic agenda and formula. It's a proven formula that works. And by the way, clearly the American people do in fact trust him because they did just overwhelmingly elect him to this office. Jennifer.
Is he going, I'm asking about the physical, is he undergoing any general anesthesia, and can you outline any of the other tests that he's doing today?
He is not. He is undergoing quite a few tests, imaging. Again, it's a it's a yearly physical, so there's quite a lot that goes into it to make sure the president is accomplishing all of his goals, and we will provide a readout of that as soon as we can.
And will you be committed to releasing all of the results, as many of the results as possible?
Of course, yes. The president's physician will do that. I spoke with him this morning.
Sure. Will you guys also consider releasing the president's fitness plan? He actually looks healthier than ever before. Healthier than he did 8 years ago, and I'm sure everybody in this room could agree. Is he working out with Bobby Kennedy? And is he eating less McDonald's?
I can confirm the president is in very good shape, as you see, on a near daily basis here. And in that vein, thank God it's Friday. It's been a very long and busy week here at the White House. We will see you all on Monday, and we will release the results of that report as soon as we can. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Have a great week.
Okay, so that's about it. Go ahead.
Mom?
Actually, majority of America did not vote him. Majority of America did not vote at all. Many people decided to not vote at all because they did not see any hope in any of the two candidates.
But
Factually, that's a
it
correct
has a
statement.
global impact.
Hmm?
Don't you believe it has a global impact? What he's doing is having an
What?
impact, no?
Of course he is. Of course it has an impact. I'm talking about how he got elected. And most of those people are crying right now because they're losing their Medicaid, and some are losing their workers, some are losing their labor. When they voted for him, they did not think that it was going to affect them. And now many of them are crying about it. So there's that. But I
No,
think trying to increase manufacturing is generally a good idea. Like he just put tariff on the import of cars. Well, that's because his excuse was that none of these countries, European or United Kingdom, they do not buy our cars. Then why do Americans buy European cars so much?
but do you think the tariffs are going to work?
Well, the American importers are asking those people who are sending stuff to pay the tariff price because they can't make the local people pay it. But the other party is saying that we're not paying for it. It's not a problem. We'll just find other customers. For the first time in history, Japan, South Korea, and China have actually got together to deal with this situation. So.
Okay, Aditya, your final words?
I think, Fareed
I
Zakaria.
don't. No, एक second. Give me a second. I don't think you realize what I just said. China, Japan, and South Korea. These three countries are enemies of each other. They have histories of genocide on each other. They hate each other with every cell of their body. They're getting together to deal with this situation. So, do you
Yeah,
understand the impact now?
basically, China hates Japan the most. No other country is hated as much as Japan is by
Mm.
the Chinese.
Because of the
The
Nanjing
Koreans,
massacre.
yeah, same is with the
Yeah.
Koreans.
South Korea. They,
The Koreans hate the Japanese the most. Yeah, so it's the oddest alliance
Taiwan
or
have
the
even
oddest people
Taiwan
coming
have
together.
threatened USA. Yeah, Taiwan have threatened USA that if they were tariffed, they're going to join the Chinese side. And you need to understand, Taiwan is the hub where they make chips for mobile and laptop, and it is like very important for the US. If Taiwan
They are
goes
the
into
most
China on
advanced.
Chinese side and in Chinese control, they will be controlling most of that. Chip manufacturing will completely go on Chinese side. So there's that.
Yeah, so they are the most advanced fabrications or the chip manufacturing plants in the world, and they produce majority of those chips globally. So it's the oddest, the most odd combination of countries coming together you can imagine, which is again very odd. And to to give the closing statement about will the these tariffs would work or not? They might, let's be honest, they might. I don't believe they will. the Farid Zakaria, which I believe is a very smart guy. Like, he did a bit about his thoughts on, like, about the tariffs, or would they work or not. He had a very interesting take about, like, you want to bring jobs into America, which people have already left. Like, these are not the jobs that Americans are aspiring to do. America has shifted from a manufacturing based country to a service based country, and you want to bring jobs that people don't want to do. This is the reason why you bring in a lot of South Americans or Mexicans or Indians to, like, work in your farms, to pick your cherries, or not literally, but uh, to, like, work in your farms, and, like, construct your homes, and all these, like, jobs that are not considered to be very, like, upper class, or, like, jobs that the rich people want to do. So this is the reason why, like, a lot of people
Picking
believe these jobs are,
vegetables.
yeah, and all these things, that that these jobs are not coming back to America. And even if these jobs come back to America, the Americans won't be doing it. Might be, like, more illegals that will be doing it. That's my closing statement. Let's see, what I am not sure, like, it can go either ways.
I,
Is
I,
the
I, I think nobody can be sure of what's exactly happening, but I do believe that one of the reasons why Trump is actually agreeing to Russia taking over Ukrainian land and not disputing it is because it doesn't leave him with a choice. Otherwise, to basically keep American hegemony. There might be occasions in the coming near future where United States will have to take over other lands to keep its control. It's just one of those facts which nobody can deny.
Yeah, it's most likely it won't work,
Shah, is that
but
your
it might
final
work.
statement?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's my
that's
final
it.
my final statement is, like, it might work, which I believe it's unlikely. But, like, there's a
Let's
saying,
see
the
where it leads, and I think with that, thank you very much to everyone who saw, and we'll see you again.
Yeah.
have a good day. See you guys.
So, uh, yeah. I think you
Yes,
guys
Maham, you
forgot I
were
have to
saying
give a
something.
final statement too. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
But anyway, what I was going to say is that even if what Donald Trump is planning to make America the manufacturing hub, it will have to first lose being the superpower. It will have to lose the title first and start from the roots, because if you're going to start manufacturing again, you have to really lose that title. Your economy will be in shambles. Like, we know how the French Revolution came, right? For good, I don't know, so many years there were fighting, there were wars, and then France got stable. So this is not a very small process. Like, it's not going to just happen and they'll be still enjoying being the superpower. I think America will have to lose the superpower title, which is actually is on its way of losing it, to become great again. So that's all I'm going to
Basically, there
say
will
till now.
be,
And
Maham.
thank you for listening.
Basically, I was just saying that, there will be there'll be a lot of chaos before, like, before peace.
Yes, exactly. So thank you everyone for listening. Do join us next time. We'll be holding these rooms regularly about different topics. We talk about current affair, religion, social issues, and everything. Subscribe our channel on YouTube. It's Gray BN or Gray Beyond Narratives, and keep listening. Till then, have a good day, good evening, and goodbye.